last video, we finished Act 1, and this one I'll kind of be, I wouldn't say speed running Act 2, but going a little bit quicker than some maybe would. I also switched up my build quite a bit. We were doing a melee build, or at least a build that was centered around melee, and then having an aura that strengthens my attack damage, but now Holy Fire, which pulses fire damage to enemies around me, and then Zeal, which basically allows my character to swing multiple times in one attack at multiple enemies. I'm recording the audio track, or the voice track, separately from the gameplay and the gameplay audio, so hopefully that'll help with the coherency. In the beginning of this, you'll see I'm still using the old build, but I swap over, I think right after I finish the sewer quest. The topic for today, I guess we could start with a couple days ago I learned more about the left and right brain hemispheres and how they interact, but also how they operate on their own. Although there's a lot of science behind it, I'd like to primarily focus on ways that even with a surface level understanding, you can interpret the information and take action in your daily life. The specific video I watched on this was Uber Boyo's breakdown of Lane McGilchrist's perspective on left and right brain and their studies. What I'd like to focus on specifically is the role that either hemisphere plays in daily living and how I personally interpreted those things and put it into my daily living, just my perspective of ways to optimize mental health. The right hemisphere of your brain is meant for focusing on details, focusing on the small things. Naturally, that means when it comes to communication, it's also meant to talk about the deeper things, the more complex stuff. It's it's the part of your brain that kicks in when you get into a deeper conversation, something that's past surface level with whoever. This naturally leads us to the left brain being for fluent conversation, just surface level, small talk, stuff like that. And so, building onto this, being that the different hemispheres of the brain are meant for different processes, this means that we can actively engage one hemisphere or the other more than the other, or at least focus on using one hemisphere of the brain over the other. And by doing this, we can train ourselves to be more detail oriented and be less on autopilot, I guess. McGilchrist says that throughout the years, humans as they evolved, the hemispheres of our brain have separated further as time goes on. Which kind of sounds weird because I think the topic of a lot of conversations is coming together, and it almost seems illogical, or it just doesn't make sense. Why would our brain separate itself more as time goes on? But I'm hoping that as I explain it more, it'll make a lot more sense. So here's a good way to think of it. Being that our left and right hemispheres of our brain have two separate jobs, the closer that they are together, the more often that, or the more possible it is that the roles of each will kind of be mixed up. A really good example to use would be, imagine you're trying to talk about something in depth with somebody and their responses to you are just very surface level. It's very clear that they either don't understand or aren't picking up on something that you're saying. They prefer to stay surface level. They don't want to go deeper into the conversation. Now, the reason I use that as an example is because being that the left and right hemispheres are splitting further apart, you can almost consider them as two different two different people, or in this case, we can say two different archetypes or personalities. And because of this splitting, they're able to work more efficiently on their own. And in being able to work more efficiently on their own, they're also able to inhibit each other. Inhibit meaning, say the left brain's trying to do something, it can say, "Hey, shut up, right brain. I'm trying to do something." Now, the reason this was really appealing to me is because social media, especially short form social media or just media, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, things like that. It just you're sitting on the left side of your brain. You're just using the left side. You're not really watching the content, so to say. You're just absorbing it passively. It's just uh, the videos are happening to you. You're not necessarily watching them, and that's a big deal because if a lot of your time or the default state that you resort to is to allow instead of being thoughtful, it obviously just, well, A, it's obviously not very helpful to the decisions you make or your health and so on. But also when it comes to general conversation with people, there's times when I hear the conversations that some people have, and I don't even know if I can consider them conversations. They're just so shallow. There's not really anything to them. Talking about the weather or a celebrity and who they have a crush on, or just jumble, just nothing. A whole bunch of nothing. Uh, a lot of talking with nothing to say, and it seems like a common way of communication nowadays. And I think that comes from you spend so much of your time or free time scrolling through shorts or TikToks, not really thinking. You're just being stimulated and regurgitating the things that you see or hear. And so to counteract that, I think it's really good to train your right brain to be some form of default state. Maybe not a default state even, but just something that is more natural to you. Think of it as when somebody blows out their back trying to pick up their kid. That probably seems like a crazy comparison, but stick with me here. Imagine you grow up, you have a kid, and you work out daily. You keep your back strong. When you have to pick up your kid, the chances of that blowing out your back are really low, if any. But if you're not training your back, if you're not working out, staying active, whatever, that chance of injuring yourself is just so much higher. So, back on topic, if you use your right brain more, if you're analytical more often, if you're when you're in your free time, instead of watching shorts, you watch something long format or you read, what that does is it teaches your brain, or you could say you, it it tells you, it makes you more comfortable with being in a position where you have to be thoughtful, where you have to be detail oriented. Why is this important? It's important because when you operate on left hemisphere so easily instead of right, you sink back. You don't really listen to people to understand what they're saying or where they're coming from. You listen to them to respond. And that's a problem. That's a really big problem because referencing, I think it was my first video I ever made on here in this series. I mean, I talk about the idea that people can feel lonely even though they have, friends, lots of friends, maybe not lots of friends, but they have people around them. And I think a lot of that comes from, you're talking to these people and or maybe they're talking to you. I'm not gonna, throw the blame on you and act as if I know you, but you know these people and you talk on a daily basis. But are you talking and understanding each other, or are you talking just so you can respond to them? And so by having the right side of your brain be more of an easier access, something that you work out regularly. So when you do need to use it, or even when you don't need to use it, and your brain just auto defaults to, hey, let's maybe it's time to give this person a thought to chew on or whatever. It's not that difficult. It happens naturally without you even thinking of it. Now, is this to say we should be reliant on the right side? No. We all know that weird person. You just kind of like be talking about something simple, and then they say something like some old English type beat quote, and you're just like, what the hell was that? That you don't want that to happen, and that's why it's still important to have that left side intact, because you still need small talk. You still need the ability to have simple conversations, enjoyable, fun, whatever conversations with people that just simply aren't interested in having that that deeper conversation. But also, it's just tiring. You don't always want to be talking about philosophical bullshit all the time. It gets tiring, and nobody really enjoys talking to somebody where that's all they talk about. Got to be able to have fun and make jokes and stuff like that too. A really simple way to develop or strengthen your attention to detail and to ensure that you're truly listening to people to understand them and not just to respond is change what you do in your free time. Change instead of scrolling through reels or TikToks or whatever, watch something longer format. Watch something that talks about, I don't know, it doesn't even matter what it is to be honest. Just something that you learn something from. It's not for lack of a better way to put it, skibbity toilet esque. You're not staring at your screen while basically nothing is being played in front of your face with a bunch of noise, and then you scroll to the next one, and it's whatever else, noise, and people doing whatever is a waste of time. You can do that on occasion. You can sit and have fun and watch videos that don't really have like a big meaning or purpose. That's totally fine. But when that's like the main thing or the only thing that you're doing when you have downtime, it's pretty bad. I've met plenty of people that like off the rip, you can tell there's just not really much going on. Uh, the lights are on, but nobody's home, so to say. And whenever that happens, I tend to ask them the question, do you watch TikTok? Do you use TikTok? Now, TikTok obviously isn't the only short form content media app out there. And so sometimes, they'll say no, and then you'll be like, oh, you like YouTube shorts, like, like what kind of. And the answer to that is almost always yes. Whether there really is a coherent connection between those two, I don't know. Maybe there's a study on that. I haven't looked into it, but it's definitely there. It's something I've noticed, and it's pretty consistent. It's fairly accurate whenever whenever that situation arises. In my experience of deleting all social media, it's a very gradual and slow change. The biggest change that happens when you get away from social media, obviously in this case I was talking about short form content, but just social media in general, is that you're not so invested in what other people are doing and more invested in what you are doing or what your close friends are doing, which I believe is how you're supposed to operate. I don't I don't think we're supposed to be knowing what everybody's doing all the time, or at least updating ourselves on what everybody's doing all the time. I think the common response to that is, well, I don't, quote unquote, I don't check on what everybody's doing all the time. No, not necessarily, but it's in front of your face every time you open the app. It's not really something you can get around. If I've used enough social media to know, when I open Instagram or I open Snapchat, whatever, the first thing you always see is what somebody else is doing, whether those are people you know or people you don't know. It's this idea of over socialization. You're just constantly in this state of seeing what other people are doing. And I think that unconsciously affects us. But I know people who are trying to get away from social media, but they still have it. They're trying to kind of like do a meet in the middle. When it comes to that, you get this hybrid of them not really caring about social media, but at the same time, they have this over concern with what other people are doing or thinking. And I think that's unconsciously brought on from just the information that's thrown into your face as soon as you open any app, any social media app, that is. You open the app and you're immediately met with what is everybody doing right now without you? It's done in such a way that it interests you, it piques your interest, it pulls you in. I think one of the big things that people, or the vibe that people who use social media get from people that recommend to stop using it is this idea of that we think we're higher than social media or that we're not interested in it, we don't care about it. The thing is, we are interested in it and we do care. Uh, and TikTok and whatever else would pull me in just like it does everybody else. And that's why I don't have it. There's a weakness that you have to admit in order to quit social media. You have to acknowledge the fact that social media is created in a way that makes it incredibly appealing to everybody. It's literally what it's built around, and nobody's immune to it. I genuinely don't think anyone in the world is completely immune to the appeal of short form content, whether it's on TikTok or any other app. And that's why you have to have the self control to simply just not have it, delete it, or just never have it to begin with. And in doing so, your natural inclination towards the people that you meet or get along with are people that also don't center themselves around social media. They also don't really use it, and if they do, they don't really have a big interest in it as most do. And that's part of it. The idea of altering your behavior or interests by simply not involving yourself in it. Because we all have bad days, and on those bad days, we're vulnerable to picking up the phone and just staring at shorts for what we thought would only be 10 to 15 minutes, and then it's 45 minutes to 2 hours. And the sad thing about it is 45 minutes to 2 hours isn't even that bad for some people. In reality, that's pretty terrible to be staring at your phone, scrolling through short form content for 30, 45 minutes, over an hour every day. It's crazy to think that there's people that just do that all day. 4 hours, 6 hours. I've seen it time. It's unbelievable. It's really sad. I'd like for these videos to be around, I think 30 minutes is a good sweet spot. I think 40 plus minutes is a little too long. But there's like a closing topic here as I get myself to the end of this quest here. McGilchrist brings up the idea that humans in the past, their brain hemispheres were closer. And because of this closeness, that's why we had a lot more myth back in the day. We have Greek mythology, we have the Bible, Quran, all these other holy writings, all equally incredibly important writings about our past, where we came from, the ways we think and operate, so on and so forth, as a whole. But they state that this closeness of the hemispheres created a mixture of myth and reality. thinking, if you think of the two hemispheres as two separate liquids, you know, when you put two liquids together, you know, they mix. That seems kind of silly to say, but just to just making sure we're on the same page, that mixing of the two hemispheres causes a constant partial disconnect from physical reality, and because of that, you're able to have these incredibly imaginative uh, writings, stories, ways of telling stories, and so on. An argument in modern day is that we're starting to stray too far from religion and our spiritual roots or divine roots, whatever, or it's the opposite. Maybe it's that we're not straying from it far enough. Those are kind of the two polarities of an argument nowadays. It's an interesting concept, two sides to it. One is that if humans always needed some kind of spiritual or religious higher power to look up to and basically do things for, I am a good person because, you know, the Bible or whatever other religious text says so, to some that can seem pitiful. I think that's a bit extreme. I think we all have different reasons for living with good values. To stay on topic here, it's just it's an interesting food for thought. If if our connection to religion is because of the structure of our brain and how our slow shift away from it may not be due to cultural changes, but actual physical changes, anatomical changes in our heads. Strange. So let's kind of recap everything that was talked about to kind of keep things coherent here. The left and the right hemisphere of our brains play unique and important roles in our day-to-day life. The goal of this video is to stay mindful about day-to-day living or people around us or the things that we do. When we do things on a daily basis that keep us at surface level or even less than surface level where we're not really present, we're just watching and consuming content. And these attitudes and behaviors of just keeping ourselves stimulated change our personality over time. We become less thoughtful. We don't listen to people to understand them. We just listen to respond. We become more generic. And this attitude and behavior that builds up creates this isolation. I think a lot of times we're starting to find it okay to sit on our phones while we're sitting around people or family in person. The idea of socializing or communicating with the people around us sounds scary or just unappealing. And that's just, it's not good. It's not something that pays off in the long run. You may have experiences where, because of this behavior, there were people that you didn't get to talk to as much as you wish you could, or you didn't put in as much effort as you wish you did, and you no longer have that opportunity for whatever reason. My goal with these videos, just to reiterate, is to explain my own life experiences and help relate them to a more general and universal scope that allows others to hear or maybe relate to them and make changes, positive changes in their own life. Try changing that. Try changing a small habit, just one. Instead of getting on TikTok or watching YouTube shorts or whatever in your downtime, read a book or watch something more long format that's educational or teaches you something. Or if you feel bold enough, delete the app. See how much it brings to your attention, how much time you spend just staring at your screen being stimulated. As always, thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.